All right, folks, I'm out here kind of gaming out how we want to fence off and subdivide some new pasture that we're going to be onboarding next year. It's about 5 acres. It's kind of an L shape here. It goes all the way back there. It goes up on this hill here. And I thought it might be kind of interesting to talk about what's going through my head while I'm planning out how I'm going to subdivide this. And first, I'll start with kind of my 2 rules of rotational grazing. One is I don't graze any paddock for more than 30 days, or excuse me, more than 3 days, and I want to have every paddock have at least 30 days worth of rest. That's driven both by grazing concerns, but also parasites. So the 3 days mostly comes from parasites, by the way. A freshly laid Humongous contortus egg can go from the egg to an infectious stage larva, I think it's L4, don't quote me on that, within 3 days. So that's where that comes from. And it's like, well, yeah, that's ideal circumstances. It's not always going to be 3 days. It's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. But the 3-day rule is one that I stick to, and that's what that's based off of. 30-day rule is a little bit more arbitrary, and I very much reserve the right to change my mind on that one in the future. But it's basically, of course, to allow for regrowth on the pasture, but also to allow for a decent amount of kind of dispersion, sterilization, that's not quite the right term, but let those parasite infectious larvae mature and die off and get past their infectious stage and go away and not be a problem by the next time we come around. Strictly speaking, by regrowth rate, I should probably be regrazing closer to like 20 days, but you have these competing interests between pasture management and parasite management. What was the other thing I was going to say was, the other thing is we really aim for non-selective grazing. I don't want them going in and just picking off their favorite things. I don't want them going in and just eating a little bit here and a little bit there. I want them really kind of cleaning that off. You can kind of see that pasture that came right there, that they came off of yesterday. That's actually not very well cleaned off. I'm planning on splitting that pasture up more so they spend more time per paddock without breaking that 3-day rule. So you have kind of these competing interests that come together. And so when I'm looking at this 5 acres, it's probably going to get split into at least 5 paddocks minimum. So you're talking about like the biggest paddock. Biggest paddocks will be 1 acre. You might say, well, just make them all evenly sized and then you graze them all the same. Even if you make them evenly sized, not all of the forage quality is the same in all the paddocks. Not all the regrowth rate is going to be the same in all of the paddocks. There are other concerns as well that I'm looking at. Shade availability. I like every paddock to have some shade at least. Goats do a lot better in the sun and the heat than cattle do, or sheep for that matter, but they ain't immune to it. And also there's a livestock guardian dog with them, so that's kind of another concern as far as shade goes. The other thing is water delivery down here. This is rented pasture. I'm not going to be installing a well or hydrants or anything like that. I'm going to be hauling water down here with a water cart behind the side-by-side. So I want to be able to park the water cart preferably in the shade, and also park it in a place where it's downhill outside of the paddock that they're currently in. So usually the paddock they just came off of, and also downhill going into the paddock. Because like see here, if we park the water cart here, that's uphill. There, if there was a fence here in the paddock there, you can't. Gravity doesn't work that way, and we don't want to have a pump out here all the time to get the water to them. And I don't want to put the water cart in the paddock with the goats. It's just not worth the risk. Even if you made it so it was impossible for them to tip over and hurt themselves on, they'll still use it to scratch on and goof around with, and they'll break hoses and break fittings. And no, I don't want to do that. So yeah, those are kind of the things that I'm thinking about while I'm starting to put this together. Again, I don't want to be on any one paddock for more than 3 days, but I want to be there concentrated enough on that one paddock to where it's a non-selective grazing situation where they're utilizing that paddock thoroughly. Now, it doesn't mean nubbing it down to dirt, but that does mean they're eating even the stuff they don't like. And then we want to have at least 30 days worth of rest, and that more factors into the whole grazing system as a whole. If you figure if all your paddocks are 3-day paddocks, for 30 days of rest between paddocks, you actually need 11 paddocks total. You might think, shouldn't you just need 30, 3 times 10. You're forgetting the one that you're currently on. You're always going to be on one of them. That one's not resting, and its rest doesn't start until you move off of it. So it's 30 times 10 plus 1 more paddock. Or 3 times 10, excuse me, plus 1 paddock. So you end up with 11 paddocks total. We're actually running about 19 paddocks now. I did combine 2 paddocks here recently because one was underperforming. And it's kind of a constant game of learning and responding to what's actually happening on the pasture. So the initial way the first year that I used this pasture and I lay the fences out, there's a very good chance it won't be that way the next year. I'll have changed it. I'll have adapted to new concerns of different forage types, regrowth rates, stuff like that. I'll subdivide some paddocks more. I may combine paddocks. I rarely do that. I almost always am splitting up paddocks more. But it's still a learning process. I'm not going to get it right the first time. And that's one of the reasons that I'm a big fan of just using 2 strands of hot wire to keep in goats and not some big crazy fence system. I want to be able to have that flexibility to modify the grazing system. Because again, I'm here in eastern Nebraska with 30 inches average annual rainfall. We were way below that this year, but we're still doing okay. And I'm running 50 head of nannies, so 170, 180 head of goats total through the entire summer, without any kind of grain or supplemental feed or anything is the goal. So pasture management and getting the most out of your grazing ground is a big deal to me.